All right, guys. Don't know exactly what happened with that, but it went down. So I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna pick back up where I left off. Hopefully, you guys find me over here. Um, we jumped onto this story where Pakistan was urging an investigation into the nuclear black market in India. At the same time, though, it seems like Pakistan's nuclear case been destroyed. They posted.
The aftermath of Operation Sindoor, India's military response to the April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack has stirred not only a strategic debate but also global concern. A particularly sensitive flashpoint, Kirana Hills in Pakistan's Sargodha district, long believed to house nuclear storage sites. The controversy intensified after a question during an Indian military briefing and a viral memo claiming a nuclear incident. Adding to the narrative, US President Donald Trump claimed his administration brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, averting a nuclear conflict that, quote unquote, could have killed millions.
And I just wonder if India's done something to try and stop Pakistan from having any more nuclear weapons too. Good to see some of you finding your way back. Sorry that occurred. We'll keep going. We've got some cool stuff to look at tonight, and there's uh, a new SG Anon's got his new show Around the Clock with SG Anon, I think it's called, and there's some new Juan and stuff. But let's finish our news here. Sorry about that, guys. R&B singer Chris Brown was arrested in the UK. We'll take a look. I don't know who he is. I mean, I've heard of him, but sounds kind of like he got in a fight. We'll move on from that. There's a lot crazier arrests happening, like this one, the Texas mother that was arrested for providing her son with ammunition and tactical gear as he planned a mass shooting at his middle school. I don't think she'll make Mom of the Year.
A Rhodes Middle School student is in custody for allegedly plotting a mass shooting, and his own mother is accused of providing him with supplies to carry it out. KENS 5 reporter Megan Reina is following this story tonight. She's live outside the West Side School. And Megan, you spoke with parents as they were picking up their kids this afternoon.
EC's parents are relieved but disturbed after learning a student was arrested yesterday. But according to this arrest warrant, his own mother is accused of providing him ammunition and tactical gear. 33-year-old Ashley Pardo is facing an aiding and commission of terrorism charge. An aiding and commission of terrorism charge, that is. The warrant states the child's grandmother reported him to police Monday after she discovered multiple loaded magazines, an improvised explosive device, and a note about mass shootings in his bedroom. The warrant states the mom bought him the supplies in exchange for babysitting his younger siblings. This isn't the first time the child has been in trouble with it.
You went babysitting, I got you this box of... At least Grandma had some common sense, right? Thank God for Grandma. Oh, it just gets worse and worse. In Minneapolis, a third grade teacher at Sullivan Steve's school, Preston Palmer, arrested. We briefly saw this pop up last night before we went off.
All right, guys, this is elementary school teacher Preston Palmer. Hey, relax. This is elementary school teacher Preston Palmer. He admitted to having a flash drive right there by my paper of 4,000 images and videos of child pornography, and it's on his phone. He said he's been grooming kids for about 20 years, and oh my God, Minneapolis PD is arresting somebody. Holy shit. So, yeah, elementary school teacher down. You are a communist, right? What? No, not you, just him. Yeah, he is. He shouldn't be around kids for a lot of reasons, but he said Trump is actively taking his rights away. Yeah.
His rights or what? Yeah. Trump's taking away his right to what? Groom children at the elementary school he works at, for crying out loud. It keeps going and going. Then this BLM activist Aston Mack was busted during a child porn sting operation.
Please, dude, I said no. Literally have the sex trafficking line. Get up. Get up. I'm not talking. Get up. I'm not trying to anyone. Please. I literally said no. Can you grab my shoe? Move.
So this BLMer's denying anything.
35-year-old Aston Mack, BLM activist, worked with challenged children in Orlando, claimed to me that he had the sex trafficking hotline number on his phone in his pocket, was just going to help this girl out. But the texts tell a very different story.
They're just rounding people up all over the place, aren't they? And then, of course, in Denver, air traffic controllers temporarily lost radio communications with their aircrafts. We saw this in Newark last week.
We begin this hour with the breaking news and another concerning lapse at an American airport.
This time we're talking about the Denver International Airport. In a statement, the Federal Aviation Administration says, quote, part of the Denver Air Route Traffic Control Center experienced a loss of communications for approximately 90 seconds on Monday.
This comes, of course, after similar incidents at Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello covers aviation for us.
All three of those times in Newark, it went out for 90 seconds. Of course, they said it was bad equipment there. I don't know what they're going to blame it on here, but I got a couple guesses because we do have a couple issues. Earth could be hit by 600,000 mile wide bird wing solar eruption tomorrow, warn astronomers. Solar flares trigger radio and communication blackouts across Earth. So maybe they're not telling us a little bit of something there. We'll take a look.
Almost 94 million miles from Earth, a powerful light show on the surface of the sun. The bursts of radiation are the strongest solar flares so far this year, but issues flaring up back on Earth. Shortwave radio blackouts have been reported on 5 different continents. A NOAA forecaster says the flare today occurred as the sun was over the Middle East, adding to the disruptions.
So there's an 11-year solar cycle, and right now we're kind of at the peak of one of those cycles of activity.
Scientists say the geomagnetic storms are caused by massive flares of plasma from the sun, specifically sunspots.
The X-rays that are coming out of those flares are actually striking a layer of our Earth's atmosphere that we bounce radio waves off of. And it's actually deforming that layer and causing a lot of disruptions.
Smaller flares happen regularly, but when they get strong enough, they can light up the sky in the form of aurora borealis in select corners of the world.
This is actually so sick.
Sometimes outbursts, turning skies pink and green further south than usual, bringing a light show to lucky residents in places like Chicago, Pennsylvania, even as far as Alabama this same time last year. Scientists say the sun reached its solar maximum last year with its largest flare in October. When the Earth gets bombarded by streams of charged particles, the flares can also disrupt cell phone service.
You're not supposed to see the aurora borealis clear down in Alabama. They're not telling you a little bit of something for sure there. I think the sun's continuously getting more and more active in some way. I mean, the auroras are getting further south. And new from the FBI, Kash Patel can now confirm reports that the FBI teams and partners foiled, big difference, an attempted ISIS attack on one of our U.S. military bases in Warren, Michigan. We'll take a look at that.
Police and the FBI say they have stopped a planned terror attack at a Metro Detroit military base. The accused mastermind, a 19-year-old former member of the Michigan Army National Guard. Again, a lot developing here at this hour. Going to bring in Robin Murdoch with our Fox 2 Detroit team, joining us live with what we know and what is still left to figure out. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning, Josh. Yeah, what could have happened here is absolutely frightening. As you just mentioned, a 19-year-old Melvindale man is behind bars this morning for allegedly planning a terrorist attack at the TACOM military facility here in Warren, where we are right now. He apparently,
He was 19. I wonder if his mother helped him like the one in Texas. You draw it up with crayons? Come on. This is terrible. What is happening to the young people in America? Or the old people. I'm sure you guys have all heard about the Comey plot by now, even though it just happened like an hour ago, 2 hours ago at best. This was put out by Donald Trump Jr., James Comey casually calling for my dad to be murdered. This is the Instagram video before James Comey deleted it. It is gone now, but of course, I've got a copy of it right here. How they figure out all that stuff, I'm not so sure, but either way, a lot of Trump's admins have taken notice at this point, and so Kristi Noem put that out, and then Kash Patel added that. We're aware of the recent tweet by former FBI Director James Comey directed at President Trump. We're in communication with the Secret Service and Director Curran. Primary jurisdiction is with SS on these matters, and we, the FBI, will provide all necessary support. Yeah, I think they're taking it pretty seriously. I don't know how the numbers work. I think it was in one of those posts, wasn't it? Maybe. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? 86 shorthand for kill, murder. 47 is President Trump. I see. I don't know why 86 is shorthand for murder. Murder Trump. Okay. Now I get it. Kind of wild. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Trump was honored with the Order of Zayed Award, which is the highest honor in the United Arab Emirates, where he was for one of his stops today. Wonder if he's it's rumored he might go to Istanbul. I don't know if that's come out yet or not.
In recognition of President Donald Trump's exceptional efforts to strengthen the long-standing ties of friendship and strategic partnership between the United Arab Emirates and United States of America, I am honored to announce that His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan bestows the Order of Zayed upon President Trump.
Do you think they spoiled him over there? I like their buildings. They got some cool buildings over there.
Will you give me the honor?
It's a giant gold necklace. Come on, put it on, Mr. President. That's supposed to be like named after the first president over there or something. Moving forward, lawmakers are investigating whether Pfizer waited to share results of the COVID vaccine in 2020 until after that year's presidential election, based on new allegations that a former Pfizer scientist has said he was part of an effort to deliberately slow down the testing, according to a new letter from the House Judiciary Committee. And Jim Jordan had something to say on that as well. Jim Jordan uncovered it. Yeah, okay. He uncovered it, suggesting senior Pfizer executive conspired to delay clinical testing on the COVID vaccine in an effort to influence the 2020 election. Nothing surprises me anymore. I'm kind of melting in this room. I won't read through all that, but RFK was also talking about this today, that the CDC held secret meetings about the rise of autism from vaccinations, and of course kept the information quiet. So it doesn't surprise me.
So, there's a number of things that happened in 1989. But it's those diseases, all these autoimmune diseases suddenly appeared. I never knew anybody with juvenile diabetes. When I was a kid, a typical pediatrician would see one case of juvenile diabetes in his career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walk through his office door has it. Something happened. Why isn't anybody talking about this? Rheumatoid arthritis suddenly exploded, lupus, all these autoimmune diseases, Crohn's disease, these exotic diseases. Nobody ever heard of when I was a kid. Now they're everywhere. And so you have allergic diseases, you have neurological diseases and autoimmune diseases, and obesity suddenly appear around 1989. And so there's a number of things that could be blamed for it. Well, the CDC thought it may be the vaccine schedule. Let's check. So they looked at one vaccine, which is the hepatitis B vaccine. They looked at kids who had gotten it in the first 30 days, and then they looked at kids who had not gotten it in 30 days. In other words, kids who got it later or didn't get it at all. And they compared these two groups. And among the kids who got it in the first 30 days, there was I think it was a 10,000% increased risk for a later subsequent autism diagnosis if you got in the first 30 days.
Wow.
So they immediately knew what was causing it. Oh, I know it was 11.35, so it's 1,135% increased risk. And so they knew immediately, it's called a relative risk of 11.35. If you have a relative risk of 2, causation is presumed. This was 11.35. The link between cigarettes, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for 20 years, and getting lung cancer is a relative risk of 10. This was 11.35. So they knew what it was. And then they had an emergency meeting that they called. They didn't want to do it on CDC campus because they thought it would be susceptible to freedom of information requests. So they did it in this remote retreat center called Simpsonwood, which is a Methodist retreat center on the wooded banks of the Chattahoochee River. In a remote.
It's wild stuff. So, even though he's out hunting down the cause of autism, it sounds like there's a lot of proof right there that the CDC's known all along. We're going to look at something else kind of weird here. And this was going around today. It's not really been widely reported on that Health and Human Services, led by RFK, is to stop recommending routine COVID shots for children and pregnant women. And I tried looking that up today. This is what the headlines were on YouTube. RFK Jr., I don't think people should take medical advice from me. There's multiple videos about that. I swear, when you want to find something. Anyway, I want to show you this other video I came across. We'll watch a couple minutes of it. It's like 10 minutes long, but we're not going to watch the whole thing. I don't even know what to make of it, and they don't specifically say what you're all going to be thinking, but I don't know. It's just weird.
Welcome to this video. Some of my recent videos featured clips of people who displayed very strange behaviours immediately prior to their deaths. as you can see, one of the behaviors that these people had in common is that they looked over their shoulder moments before their death. What were they looking at? What did they see or hear? Or what presence were they aware of? This video shows this man's last moments alive, in which he's turning his head as if he's looking at something, and then he acts to fight something off. Whatever it is that he's fighting off, and he is aware of something, it's not visible to the camera. Now, this isn't an insect, because the man lived in India, where insects are pretty commonplace, and he would most likely have been thoroughly used to them. So what were these people looking at? What happened immediately before their death? How might their deaths be connected with the COVID vaccinations? Some potential clues come from videos that you're about to see. I'll be upfront with you, and I'll tell you that you're about to see a person who is possessed by evil. Yes, it does exist. This first video is of a woman encountered by Border Patrol agents, and I'm showing it to you so that you have some reference to what possession looks like.
More out there than I even have words for.
Put your feet in.
Man, put your feet in so we can close the doors.
Okay. You're just gonna close the door. You stay right there before we move. Hey, calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Back up. Back up. Hold on. Hey, get your foot back in there. Get your foot back in there. Get your foot back in there. Ma'am,
didn't see that coming.
I don't understand what you're telling me. Put your feet back in there.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hall.
Bro.
Now I'll play a video of a woman who is possessed and who is being interviewed.
I don't know.
You'll note some of the similarities between their
behavior. Do you guys even believe in possession?
To overcome censorship, the word vaccine has been beeped out and has been replaced by the word pharmakeia.
Be watching this on Halloween.
Miss Cross, look at me. You're arrested. Is the part of your kingdom?
Yes.
Is it?
But she won't take it.
What happens if she takes it?
She's ours.
She's yours. How? It's just
No.
it's
I work through medicine.
No, but it's
Have you noticed the serpents?
the serpents. What serpents?
Look at all hospitals.
That shows medicine, the serpents. Is that what you're talking about? No, I don't believe you're talking nonsense. So you work through pharmakeia, witchcraft. So is it all part of your plan? I arrest you in the name of Jesus. Part of your plan. Has black magic in it.
But she already knew that.
So she's got black magic in it. So what happens when people take it? What is going to do to the people in the long run?
You think possession's her? I don't know what she's taking.
Before
maybe
repentance.
she is possessed.
When are they going to die?
But that's
when are they going to start dying?
That's something else.
What's
there.
the plan?
That's wild. We're gonna go ahead and move on now. Chinese money launderers allegedly funneled $50 million for the drug cartel, dropping out bags of cash at ATMs and bank teller windows throughout LA County. This is kind of a wild story, too.
In a major announcement that has caught national attention, U.S. federal authorities have revealed the details of an international money laundering operation. This operation allegedly involves Chinese nationals and a Mexico-based drug cartel. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the suspects are accused of laundering over $50 million in cash. They made regular deposits, often in large duffel bags, at bank teller counters and ATM machines across Los Angeles County. These deposits were allegedly structured to avoid detection, using multiple drop-offs and a network
sure
of
they
couriers to
were.
hide the illicit origins of the money. Officials
I didn't know China had any kind of connection with the cartels like that. That's certainly not good at all. All right, let's keep it going here. I don't know where I'm at. Ukrainian man was charged with arson following a fire at the London property owned by Keir Starmer. I think we talked about that. Maybe we didn't. Anyway, they caught somebody for that. Ukrainian national. Go figure. And there's wildfires burning out of control in Minnesota. What the hell's going on in Minnesota? You guys live up there?
And now to a story that we've been following for days now. In northern Minnesota, 3 uncontained wildfires continue just to burn out of control, and they are growing. Take a look at the video here. These fires burning more than 35,000 acres, forcing evacuations and destroying homes and cabins.
And this is where they're located. The 2 biggest fires, the Camp House Fire and Jenkins Creek Fire, are west of Silver Bay. The Munger Shaw Fire is west of 2 Harbors. So Young Kim will have more on the efforts to contain these fires in just a couple of minutes.
But right now, let's get over to Chief.
Well, this wild wind we're having today probably didn't help, but there might be some rain behind it. Maybe, just maybe. Oh, I'd never heard of baristas going on strike. This is almost laughable, but more than 1,000 Starbucks baristas across 75 U.S. locations have been on strike since Sunday, protesting a new dress code requiring solid black shirts and khaki, black, or blue denim pants under their green aprons. My God, this is just terrible. I mean...
Starbucks drama alert. Over 1,000 baristas are striking, and it's got everyone buzzing. Over 1,000 Starbucks baristas across 75 U.S. stores have gone on strike, protesting a new dress code. The new policy restricts them to solid black shirts and khaki, black, or blue jeans, aiming to highlight the iconic green apron. Starbucks claims this change enhances brand recognition and creates a more unified look. They even provided 2 free black shirts to each.
Somebody better call Trump. Turn him around. He can't go to Istanbul right now. We've got baristas on strike. This is serious. Oh. All right. Watch them all get fired. That's what Starbucks will just end up firing them all. I don't know. What are they complaining for? We don't want to wear black shirts. Speaking of Trump's destination, he's kind of hinting around that he could go to Istanbul. Not really. I mean, he's just not telling people where he's going to go.
We'll be leaving tomorrow, as you know. Almost destination unknown. Because we're getting close. Could you be here? Could you be there? But probably going back to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Some of you are going to be traveling with us.
Yeah, well, the Diddy trial going on and on and on. I'm going to look at a couple things here. We'll look at this update. Then I want to look at a clip from this show because it's rumored that Obama and Hillary Clinton's names came up today in the trial.
Force, fraud, coercion was mentioned in the case. Actual sex trafficking was mentioned. It was not in Ghislaine Maxwell's case and in Jeffrey Epstein's case, which means this guy should never see light of day. It should be life because children are involved. Everything should be off the table. The jury should be pretty well informed. The jury should know what's going on if the prosecution did a good job in selecting a jury. And then what? We need the people that funded him. Where's the music moguls that funded the freak offs? Because he didn't start with cash. He didn't start Bad Boy Records on on his own. He had big names that are still in the music business today, that are walking around scot-free, who funded him. Remember, my sister Ilanka was trafficked in the music business. Within 31 years of fighting human trafficking, if there's one thing we really know, it's the hybrid blend of entertainment and trafficking. This is literally my family's story. There's so many that should fall with him. The concern I have is that he will fall alone. He cannot fall alone.
And I got an island, it's called Love Island.
For the report about the 9-year-old boy, that the video that was being shopped around was Bieber and Diddy.
It's on the tapes. I believe Barack Obama got a tape.
Probably the Obama thing.
John, what's the, oh God.
Oh God.
John?
What?
What is your wife talking about?
I don't know.
Jennifer Lopez has multiple tapes.
People realized when they zoomed in a little bit, there was a person, seemed to be like a kid.
Beyonce got a tape. Stevie J and Eve stuff. I know Drake got a tape. I know Rihanna got a tape. I know Chris Brown was on one of them tapes. I know Trey Songz, definitely Usher. I think what would shock people are the politicians and the royals. When Harry and Meghan are going to be honest about their freak-off tape.
Now, if Diddy had tapes, the feds have them. That's a lot of blackmail.
They're all a bunch of freaks. Who would have thought? I don't know if I want to spend much time on this at all, to be honest with you. We'll look at this for like 2 seconds. I don't know. I was looking at my phone for a second. Then we're going to move on to the shows.
So you want to be hardcore with your hat?
Boom, 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 boom.
Remains undefeated. Accuse your enemy of that which you are guilty of. A reminder that Diddy was used by the Democrat Party and CNN in order to call for President Trump's removal because he's such a bad person, saying that white men like Trump need to be banished from society.
Need to be banished. White men like Trump need to be banished. That way of thinking, it's real dangerous.
It's real dangerous, says Diddy. Well, that's interesting. Let's go ahead and check the record here. Where is President Trump today and where is Diddy? Donald Trump is off signing trillions of dollars of new trade deals with the Arab states, being welcomed like a conquering king in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. And Diddy is in prison, fighting for his life. Will most likely spend the rest of that life in jail as his sick and despicable crimes are laid bare before the entire country. But oh man, is this getting dark. This Diddy trial has taken an unexpected turn. Disturbed Diddy jury gasps as they see horrific images of Cassie and escorts and freak-offs. So they had this all on film. Cassie, this was his girlfriend of 10 years, recalls how she was ordered to have sex with male sex workers and then apply copious amounts of baby oil to herself to keep herself glistening. Combs' defense says that he's guilty of being a cuck, domestic violence, but not of sex trafficking. Of course, his domestic violence episodes are on tape. It's not enough for Diddy to spend his life in prison. Every single celebrity who participated in the demonic activities must spend life in prison too. And I believe there's hundreds of them. Covering the Diddy trial, and I need a shower. The levels of depravity,
I bet there's thousands of them,
which this fallen man is capable of, knows no bounds. I mean, there's apparently really sick stuff. Cassie Ventura testified that she did not remember how the term freak-off came about. She recalled that Sean Combs proposed this sexual encounter that he called voyeurism, where he'd watch me in intercourse and sexual activity with another man.
Yeah, this stuff, it gets extremely detailed and disturbing. I suppose they'll keep naming names, but when are they going to start making more arrests? This stuff here, sounds worse than Epstein, but God only knows. The details that have been leaking out, though, from court, nasty stuff, or nasty freaking people. I don't know if life in prison serves them enough. Some people maybe just need taken out and tossed off the back of a cliff. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna watch this brand new episode with Juan, and then we're gonna watch this episode of SG Anon's new show, and we'll go from there, see what else is going on. It's hotter than fuck up here. Pardon my language. It's hot. It's hot up here. All right, let's check it out.
Hey everybody, Dr. Mary Crowley. I've got 107 in the studio. We're just going to do a short podcast today. There's some developing, breaking things happening in the world. So today's show is sponsored by MyPillow. Let's roll that commercial, please.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Anyway, it's a great deal. Go to MyPillow.com, promo code Mary, save significant amount. So anyway, Juan, I know that you said that you have a lot of breaking stuff going on. Can you tell us anything about what's happening, or it's kind of confidential?
Well, a lot of it's stuff that's not really discussable on the realm, but I will tell you this, just a few minutes ago, there was a note out of State Department acknowledging that a set from the Congo to come to the U.S. and meet with private religious leaders and organizations about assisting there with the work that needs to be done in Congo. Christian populations throughout the Congo, but especially in the north, have been attacked. And of course, your friend and my friend, Bree Keaton, has a lot to do there. And so she was listed as one of the people that would be included in those meetings with a official delegation from Kinshasa there in the Congo. This is important because it's not a official meeting within the State Department. This is a private operation, private meetings to try to get to how do we in the West as Christian believers help others of the faith, Catholic, Protestant, etc., to stop the killing. That's what Trump wants, just stop the killing, and then let's figure out how we can move forward and create stability in the region. The reason that there's very little infrastructure in many of those countries across Central Africa and East Africa, West Africa too, is because they no more than start to get on their feet, get their sea legs, and there's another conflict. Companies can't come in and build bridges and roads and power systems, etc., when there's this kind of disruption. So here you have arguably the richest per capita country in the world, the Congo, with greater mineral wealth than anywhere else on the planet per capita, and they're relatively poverty stricken. Why? Because they can't access that wealth that's in the ground without the infrastructure and the stability to bring in global corporations and workers and housing and things like that for people that can come in with their expertise. So starting this from a religious standpoint, let's just stop the killing, is a big deal. And of course, there's several groups that have been targeted within the Christian populations, but the one that suffers, I believe, the greatest right now is the Pygmy population, which our friend Bree is a spokesperson for. She actually holds the title deed to much of their land. They're nomadic and have been classically. They're not advanced in Western terms. They don't have a constituency in the political realm. They don't have a constituency in the business realm. When they get up in the morning, they don't go to work. They climb out of the tree and they go look for food for themselves and their families. They're relatively unsophisticated. They're relatively innocent. They, as a population and a group, haven't come into the modern world in many ways. And so the world kind of left them behind. And unfortunately, as the world continues to build out, including in their region, you know, the Congo is about the size of 3 Texases. Take Texas and multiply it by 3, that's the size of the Congo. It's a very big area. This northern area where Axrat is this highly mineralized area, China's been behind it. They can say anything they want. They're behind the operations here with ISIS and the funding and the weapons coming through Rwanda. And then other nations in the area have been right there like vultures to step in and take control in this power vacuum in that region. So people that are supposed to be neighbors and friends and all that, being opportunistic. The only thing that's changed in the last few months is that Trump stepped in. China was racing to try to get a handle on this area that nobody could break, and owns much of the business in the Congo and title deed to some of this business. These ISIS players had just pushed people out of one of the biggest tin mines in the world, run by a U.S. corporation, and they'd had to the region. Trump stepped in a while ago with the negotiations and talking with Tikashetti, the president, and said, well, we'd like to come in there and help. Tikashetti offered all the mineral wealth. Just come help us. We don't want it. We want to work with them, not steal it from them. We're not the next one on the list. But when China came in through their proxies and created this disruption around this huge mine, just to give you an idea of scale of what's going on in the world. That one mine in a country very few people even pay attention to in this modern era, that one mine shutting down caused tin prices, a key metal involved in all sorts of metals productions around the world. That one mine shutting down caused a jump in tin prices worldwide of 1/3. Tin prices went up 1/3 in days after they walked away from that mine. This region is extremely important and critical to the whole world's stability. When Trump stepped in, they were able to begin the process to head back to the mine, knowing that it was not going to be offline for years and years and years, or only available to China, cause prices to cool off and come back down closer to where they've been. That's one of those things that very few people even recognize that's occurred within these last few weeks and months within the Trump administration, them making their presence known, their weight known in these disparate areas that do affect global market stability. Congo is important to us. There's things going on there. Christians are going to be asked to step up to help keep that population alive while they stabilize it. There's food in the area. There's plenty of it, but it's not getting to the Christian groups in northern Congo because of supply issues, pipeline, roads, things like that. With this supposed civil war, that's not really a civil war. It's an attack by outside forces to create the opportunity to take over, steal a huge portion of that mineral wealth for ultimately China.
Well,
so,
and I know I interviewed Jane. I met her for the first time. Actually, God spoke to her audibly to go and help the pygmies. Actually, we're going to be doing a movie about Brie at some point in the future because of the story. God used a woman that was fearless to go in and supernaturally, sovereignly, she protected her. Bullets, literally they shot at her and bullets fell to the ground, almost like a force field. Amazing story. So incredible, a woman of God. Really need to pray for Brie Keaton. I know we only have a short period of time. Also, what's happening down in South Africa, many of you know that there was a plane of these farmers that were actually recently brought here too, because they were being murdered and killed in South Africa. What do you know about that, Juan?
Well, they were actually given a couple choices. Putin offered free farmland to any of the farmers in South Africa that wanted to move to various areas in Russia and set up farming there. These people do incredible work. They're great farmers. But they're, it's a racial thing, and being attacked there in South Africa by some of these rebel groups and killed in horrendous ways, being under a continuous, constant threat like that, and then having their equipment, their fields, their workers attacked. It's really an attack on the stability of South Africa. The person I'd go to talk with about that would be, someone like Laura Logan, who is from that area of the world and has a very good handle, still has relatives that live there. She'd be the best source on that. John B. Wells, another friend, his wife is from South Africa, and he's followed that for a long, long time, since he did a lot of work out of South Africa over his career. They know people right there. I know a handful, but not close enough that my input should be that, key. I think there's others that know the situation much more intricately, but South Africa is under attack internally, and a lot of it has origins from other regions of the world. Literally, has pushed the Afrikaners. So.
Well, and we're seeing this destabilization around the world, and that's what President Trump is trying to do. Is to bring stability to the world. But so now let's just because we only have about maybe another 20 minutes. Juan's got to jump off for an urgent situation he's dealing with. So President Trump is in Saudi Arabia. Let's go on a little bit about what he's doing over there and what the purpose of what he's doing for my audience.
Well, I would put this in the same vein as what Reagan did when he first came into office. Right out of the chocks, he went after energy. But in his case, because remember, we had the high gas prices and gas lines in the years earlier. It was refinery issues more than oil supply, but it was blamed on Saudi Arabia and the Arabs and like that. There was a push in this whole thing to get more power to the Arab nations. Kissinger was a big part of it. Short version is that Reagan, when he came in, got Saudi Arabia to turn on the taps and pump massive amounts of oil. And the reason he did that, in part, was to take out the Soviet Union. Soviet Union we were in a Cold War with. It was going on forever. They were getting outside revenue from oil and gas sales, as well as selling arms to the world. That was their primary source of income. And so when Reagan drove down oil and gas prices, he cut off the money supply for the Soviet Union coming from that oil and gas sales. They drove the price down so low and kept it there that the oil and gas companies in Russia and companies from around the world that had made huge investments there just left the pipe, cats, equipment, drilling rigs and platforms right where they were, and the workers walked away and walked home. They didn't even have money to fly. They're getting hitching rides everywhere to just get out of the oil producing regions because there was no more work. The price of oil had dropped so far below the cost of production.
Can't hear you, Juan. I don't know if we lost the sound. Juan, can you hear us? Anyway, I don't know what's going on. Maybe usually if he's getting another call, usually it blocks out his screen. But anyway, like I said, Juan only has a short period of time to be on. There's an urgent issue in the Congo going on. One of my friends, Bruce Keaton. Okay, Juan, you just basically, we couldn't hear anything you just said. Juan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had an incoming call and it cuts you off. I apologize. The short version is Reagan, when he came in, got the Saudis to pump massive amounts of oil, many times what they were normally producing, because they had the capacity. They drove down oil prices worldwide. That cut off the money supply in Russia, with all these companies that were coming in drilling oil out across southern Russia and selling it and getting hard cash out of other places in the world. The oil companies and the workers just walked away from the drilling operations, left all of their equipment behind, didn't even take and scavenge things up because it wasn't worth anything in a low price oil market. Nearly took out Texas here in America on their oil stuff with these super hyper low prices. What Trump is doing is something similar. He's doing a deal with the people that have been backing the dollar, which is the Saudis, with oil production. They buy American equipment with the dollars they get from selling their oil out around the world. And we've been providing protection for those cargoes to be on the high seas going anywhere in the world. Our State Department, our Navy, our Air Force, to protect those loads. Anybody that attacks them, wants to go after them, has to, it's considered an attack on America because it's transacted in dollars. He's supporting the American dollar. And then the Saudis, who have done some little deals with China and Russia over the last several years on military equipment, now are fully committed to buy American equipment, which means it supports the American economy. Like it or not, America is still on a military industrial complex. What drives business in America is military production out to the world. So he's guaranteeing that there's those high-priced jobs here in America that we're producing it, and he's taking the air out of the room, the oxygen out of the room for Russia and China. They're not getting those big arms contracts. Other countries tied into Saudi Arabia and watching will likewise do it. It's not just the 150 billion that the Saudis are buying. It probably out through the other countries that will follow suit is closer to $500 billion in purchasing over the next year or two that will be committed to, and still take, up to a decade to actually occur. What happens when they buy American equipment is they need American trainers. They need access to come train here on U.S. soil. It actually becomes more even than the 150 billion that's talked about. And we get it into their situation. They're not going to easily go use American equipment to do dastardly things like attack Israel or something like that. They're agreeing to enter in a relationship that includes diplomatic interactions, etc., and mutual defense pacts. If somebody's attacking someplace in the region, the Saudis will use equipment that we have sold them, not given them, to assist in anything that comes up, including U.S. basing. What it does is it picks a path, a direction forward for the Mideast for literally decades to come. These systems, you put them in place, but they're there for 20 and 30 years. So it'll be very hard for Saudi Arabia to disconnect and the other countries. It's good for Israel because if they use American weapons and start turning it towards some kind of an aggressive thing that we don't agree with, we can cut off the supply chain. That may sound tiny, but the reality is these weapon systems need continuing maintenance, parts, and interaction, updating, etc. If after spending all this money and committing to these equipment within their defensive systems, if we cut it off, they're dead in the water. So they're going to be very sensitive to how we feel about things happening in the region and their involvement in it. It's a very stabilizing thing from our perspective, including towards Israel, including towards the ones that aren't in the deal, such as Iran, because they now realize that we're securing positions where everybody has to cooperate and assist us, even into Syria, which Iran's been using as a proxy, even into Turkey, which has all this weight within the NATO system. But if they want to be viable and relevant, they want to be able to train with other militaries in the area with similar equipment. It's actually a very, very big deal. Trump is not overstating it. If anything, he's understating it. This is as important to the remainder of the Trump policy being spread into the world as what Reagan did when he forced the Saudis to get along to go along and drive down oil prices to take the wind out of the sails of the Soviet Union. And in this case, both the Soviet Union and China by what's being done in this deal.
Well, and let's get to America, what's happening here. We're seeing what he's doing overseas with the tariffs. But now, like in our country, we see the lawfare with these judges. We see that, of course, they have Tom Homan and, getting rid of a lot of the illegals, but these judges are stepping in the way. What do you think is going to happen on that front? I know that I heard some people say he could try to file rid of habeas corpus. Do you think he might try to do something like that in the future long?
Do you think
President Trump would do that if we see this rogue judges and some of the things with the Supreme Court? Do you think that President Trump would go so far as, filing a writ of, I don't know if I'm saying it right, writ of habeas corpus?
No, he would suspend habeas corpus, which means
suspended.
That the courts could not be used to slow down the deportation of people that are here illegally. In fact, it goes beyond that. The rules for people that may fall into criminal organization type groups, terrorist groups, they're going to Gitmo. The first 33, they called them migrants that had been brought into America. The military spent $21 million sending 33 migrants to Gitmo, a fun number, by the way, since Trump came into office. Well, excuse me, let's be a little bit more precise. They weren't just any migrants. They were the gang leaders of some of the most notorious criminal gangs in the world who had moved to America and were going to supervise the gang wars being portrayed as civil wars inside America related to moving illegals out of the country, arresting and deporting. So on day one, if you look at the military's report on expenditures, it starts on January 20th, Inauguration Day, because they began moving personnel and equipment to support the arrest of these gang members and then the movement of them to Gitmo. They're sitting at Gitmo right now. And the rest of their organizations below them are now trying to find their sea legs. They didn't get to pull off the terrorism across America that was planned at the beginning of the Trump administration. Now we're moving down the ranks into their systems, including the movement of weapons within the country and ammunition. On a couple of occasions now, we've picked up van loads of ammunition purchased at gun shops in parts of the country and then being moved to Colorado and other states. You know, if it just takes a dozen rounds to shoot up a school or a shopping, imagine what happens with 500,000 rounds of ammunition in the wrong hands. How did we find those ammunition runs and the people doing it that came into the country? Well, because those gang leaders in Gitmo are understanding that they're not getting out probably in their lifetime. They will spend the rest of their life on this planet in some type of a detention center as criminal terrorists. And so they're being given opportunities to maybe make life a little bit easier for themselves and their families by explaining what the plans were, who they were working with, all the operations, and they're telling us that. So we're finding these movements of supplies miraculously. The police just happen to be going down the road and the guy's headlights are a little high. Looks like they're on their brights and they're not turning them off. Pull it over and the van is so loaded with ammunition that it's sagging on the springs, lead. And, that was just happenstance. Probably not. And so we're getting a track on all these organizations. They're not going to get to just wield terror across America like they were planning on. Trump is striking first, and he's not waiting for them to strike first and then react to it. They're going to have to react to us. And the message is going out. And it's not just here in America, other places in the world. By the way, Gitmo is not the only endpoint for these people. We have other facilities in the Southeast Asia region and the southern end of the Indian Ocean. And they're already getting built out there too, by the way.
Well, even with the Alcatraz, now he's talking about opening up. Do you think he would utilize?
Alcatraz for the moment's a scarecrow. It'll take quite a while to build it out, update it, everything else. A couple of years, and keep building it out. It has a great reputation, and guaranteed you're not going to be busting out of the new one because they're not going to use the facilities the way willy-nilly. What he's really helping everybody to understand, including people here in America illegally, migrants, you might want to head home while the heading's good. Get out of here while the getting's good. Because if we get you first, you might not be walking free the rest of your life. You want to go back to your own place or someplace else, fine, but get the hell out of here and don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Well, that's because we're not going to be easy victims. We're not just sitting here waiting for you to attack us like happened during prior administrations. This is a different game. Look at the flow across the borders. It hasn't just slowed down, it's essentially stopped for all intents and purposes. And now we're beginning the process to start moving towards moving people back out of the country. And by the way, we haven't fully got up to speed at the Justice Department and other places. As we do, however, you can also expect not just the high profile arrests of leadership, but the detention of large volumes of people in detention centers and then the processing. Think of the Muriel boat lift back in the Carter era with Cuba times 1,000, not 10, not 100, 1,000. Those people that decide to figure it out and get out of the way now are probably miles ahead. And if they leave on their own, they can apply to come back in. And once we get this somewhat under control, we do want these people back in. We want them to come through the front door lawfully and to assimilate and become Americans and obey our laws and screen out the truly bad actors that have been coming in with them. It's not that we don't want immigrants. We want them to come here. America's always been safe haven with welcoming arms for immigrants. But first, we're going to get this under control and then do it in an orderly fashion. If you're here illegally, we love you. Get out and come back in the correct way. Even this was a policy even back to the turn of the century. I was just communicating with someone whose grandparents came here illegally from Europe, had been here with and everything else for years. But at a moment where they had to leave against their will, go home. They were there for 3 years going through the process before they could come back, went on to have very successful lives and their families and like that. Look, it's the way it is. We're going to enforce the laws so that we're safe as a country, including, we got the gang leaders, the terrorists sitting at Gitmo and other places. They still have huge organizations here that are still a threat to reorganize. Well, we're going to go get them too. That's coming. And, we got room for 30,000 people at Gitmo alone. Look at the one over in Southeast Asia and look at the one down there in the southern part of the Indian Sea. We can have many times that in those locations, and they've been under construction just like Gitmo has the entire time that Biden was in office. Pelosi couldn't stop it. Biden couldn't stop it. We're getting ready to do some serious stuff. If you're here illegally, this is a great time to go home. You can complain and whine and moan and fuss, but you'll do it from a federal detention center next to one of our military facilities, and it might be quite a while. So if you think you're going to be safer there than home, well, that's where you're going to be. But we're not going to, Trump is not fully up to speed. Do not believe the pace we're going at as fast as it is fully up to speed. 6 months from now, a year from now, you'll understand what fully up to speed is. Make your moves while it's easy, or we'll take care of it for you. It's up to you.
Well, let's just kind of wrap it up. I wanted to just keep it at about 30 minutes. In reference to the Justice Department one, what we're seeing with the Epstein list, and some people are saying like Pam Bondi is not going fast enough. Kash Patel's not going fast enough.
Bullshit. Let me stop you right there. I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
This is so hypercritically important.
Yeah.
Pam Bondi hasn't even got all of the bad people out of the Justice Department and her own staffing in there. It's a process. She hasn't even been in office herself 100 days, let alone about 107 now. Excuse me? When she's fully up to speed and got a couple months under her belt, then you can start deciding if you want to criticize. She just got there. And by the way, it was FBI that wasn't supplying Southern District of New York the Epstein materials. It wasn't until she rode over to Kash, which she had to wait till Kash got confirmed after her. And then she sent him a note, could you help me out here? Kash, with that note and his responsibilities back to the Justice Department, went down with a crew and literally had to bust down the doors of Southern District of New York and the property rooms and get the stuff and get the names and positions of all the players that were blocking this material from getting to Bondi. And then once they got it, it's huge. She got a little ream of papers from FBI. Well, this is everything on the Epstein case. Have a nice day, goodbye. And she had to get Kash to go down there and kick ass, leave marks on some people's butts with the pointy shoe to get the materials. Once they got them back, the process began, but she isn't fully staffed right now. And they're not just giving it to anybody. Give her a little bit of time to work. And by the way, not everybody who went to Epstein Island is a bad guy. What was it about? It was a roping operation, blackmail, honeypotting, trying to put people in compromising positions, film it, and then hold it against them to do the will of these controllers out around the world. Not just people in the American government, but Globalista, who wanted the green movement to go forward and giving grants to college professors and whole wings, and also the threat that they'll be defunded and they'll lose their positions in the university system if they don't go along. It's not just business people, politics, judges, it's into the university system. And some of these people that are on the list were themselves victims. So they have to make the case. They don't just throw it out there willy-nilly like a bunch of idiots. You're in a legal environment where you're putting people's lives and well-being at risk, who themselves, in many cases, tried to report what they saw and couldn't find a place. You interview them, you find out what's going on. Bondi's doing precisely what she's supposed to do. Trump is satisfied with what she's doing. He's a pretty good judge of what's going on here. If he becomes dissatisfied, she'll hit the road. In the meantime, he's not dissatisfied. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. Those people that are know-it-alls think they know exactly what she's not doing right and doing wrong and everything else. Bullshit. You don't probably even have a lot. You don't
like
even
the
understand the environment. Give her a break.
No, I'm fully supportive of Pam Bondi. I'm just trying to play, ask the questions. I know that you hear people throwing out there.
We don't want to be rabble rousers and assist these backstabbing, backbiting, talking people, okay? These rumor mongers. Okay. She's trying to do her job. And by the way, the stuff that she said, Keith, gotta love him. He's one of the greatest assets in modern history with the work he's done with Veritas. But let me flip that around a little bit. They got Pam saying some stuff that she's been saying in, mixed company. And she hasn't been choking it back. People are asking, by the way, it's not just Bondi, it's other people within the political system. Many, I've said it to your audience and other audiences. You got to give room, because the stuff they got on the Epstein stuff, it goes everywhere. It's tens of thousands of hours of tape. You might have 100 cameras all seeing little pieces of everything with time and date. They have to stitch that together person by person, victim by victim, to make a coherent case. It takes a lot of time and professional work to vet through that stuff and get it right. And what are the actual crimes that you're going to go for, and pick groups and waves that you're going for. That's a process. You might not like it and it's not comfortable, but the wheels of justice grind slow, but they also grind fine. And we're going to get there. And Bondi's doing exactly what it's supposed to. She's not up to speed. We're going to get justice for the Epstein victims and others. Whole region of islands there in the Caribbean had the islands where there was stuff going on, many worse than Epstein. Think about that for a second. We're going for all of it. Take a deep breath.
Well, actually, Sir Richard Branson has an island down there.
Lots of them. I mean, there's tons of. NXIVM was having their recruiting meetings at Branson's Island. He wasn't there at the time, but that's part of the testimony in New York on the NXIVM
NXIVM.
and it's pretty compelling stuff. In fact, Horsehead, what's her name, claimed that Trump had the affair with her, which was false. She was recruited on Branson's Island, testified about it in the cases up in New York, and said that part of the recruitment was watching snuff films, people having sex with people while they're killing them, while they're dying. And that was part of the recruitment films that were shown at Branson's Island. These are people he allowed to be there at his island. Were they fake films or were they real? What do we have? What do we know and when did we know it? This is a process.
Because I know you have to. Let's talk a little bit. In closing, let's talk about the Diddy. His trial is starting. The whole Hollywood circuit. That's all getting ready to implode. I talked to your friend, that worked with the Sound of Freedom movie. The God is literally rolling out, and putting together structure for the greatest show on earth. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it roll out, and we have to pray. I mean, we're, as you know, Juan, we're in a spiritual battle. And we're not dealing with these people. We're dealing with demonic entities and beings that we cannot combat this in the natural realm. And so lastly, Juan, because I know you have to go, what do you know about the trial or anything going on in Hollywood right now?
You know, there's other people that are much better on the Diddy stuff, and I think that they're the ones that should talk on this. And we can talk about who you might want to pull up and interview there that can give much greater detail. But in a basic sense, and I've heard it from several of them firsthand, but I think they'd be better sources on this. Diddy is a much greater operation than most people have actually perceived so far. The activities that they were involved in weren't just sex stuff with consenting adults or even minors. It was satanic. A number of the people that have come out and talked about things they saw and that happened have described the things going on as rituals, worship to Satan himself. And I believe that will come out in portions of the trial. The question is, will the prosecutor, Comey's daughter, go to those areas or keep it relatively at a higher level or not, and whether they'll raise those issues? And by the way, it won't end with Diddy. He's just the first one there. Look at how crisp and clean, and he's such a good businessman, and he hangs out with all the right people. That was the image you got out across the world for a couple decades. Now the truth comes out. It was grotesque. It was slimy. And behind the scenes, it was manipulation, blackmail, threats of death, and death itself. These things are all going to come out there, but the fractures out into the Hollywood community and other people is going to continue. It's going to spread wildly. He's not just going down by himself. A number of other stars who similarly are portrayed as clean and righteous and so kind and helping communities like that are going to be exposed for who they truly are. And that's going to break the image. Hollywood will have to, I don't believe, get restored in Hollywood or reinvented. I believe ultimately that whole house has to come down, go into the pit of hell where it belongs, and other places will rise up. It's not about rebirthing Hollywood. Even the name, the origins of that name, what's it mean? Well, you got it from your Harry Potter. The most powerful magic wands, a la Disney and everybody else, are wands made with wood from the holly tree, and they cast their magic spells. The most powerful magic spells come from the wands of the magicians that are made from holly wood. And we don't want those people anymore. We don't want their occult. We don't want their way. We don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, we don't. Well, listen, Juan, lastly,
Hollywood will be reinvented in a different way, even if it's in similar areas. It won't have those same basic things, or it will not be blessed by God. We're not making demonology righteous again. Okay? It will be something else. It won't be new wine into old wineskins. It will be new wineskins, a new construct. And if people are trying to reinvent Hollywood, I will say from the outset that they will fail. If they're trying to reinvent Disney based on all the magic and spells and crowd there, they will fail. There will be something new. That's where we should put our efforts. And it won't be a reinvention of the old, because that is corrupt and it's actually based in evil. We're not building our churches on the graveyards of the demons.
Yeah, that's right. Well, years ago, and then I'll just finish with that, God said to build a studio to rival Disney and call it Destiny. We're not trying to copy Hollywood. It actually has to burn down. Hollywood has to go 100%. It has to have a whole new foundation. And so, Juan, I thank you for coming on. Is there one last thing that you want to say before you go? Because I like to stay to my word and keep it short, just because I said I would.
A prayer is still always required. There's a lot in play right now that is so crucial to the direction that we go as a country. President Trump, he needs divine wisdom. Great leaders doing amazing things, going at the speed of light relatively, and yet still needing their ear to hear God's voice, the still small voice. To do things and move quickly and decisively. Pray would be ever present in thoughts and directions, and that he be given grace and latitude to favor, to accomplish the things that are before him, that God has set there on his plate. And for all of the leadership that he is trying to bring into place to assist and support him, that they likewise would be very sensitive to a move of God here, taking America away from control, the devil self, and moving us towards righteousness and all the risks that are coming. There is great challenges just ahead, and I don't think we're through the darkest hours of this. We just have a direction to begin to deal with some of these things, but we're far from dealt with. A good start is not the whole thing. And the enemy is going to come back and try to divert and distract and disrupt. And we speak against our enemies and ask for divine protection and assistance to get to righteous ends for America, to do good things. And not just for America, but so that once we're strong and stable, we can then go out to the other 71 countries who, like America, had their elections stolen from them by China specifically. And we have the proof, and that's coming very shortly. 2020, it's not over yet.
Well, thank you, Juan. And that's why from the Passover to Pentecost, the 50 days, that actually June 1st and 2nd is going to be the actual Pentecost Shavuot. And it's a significant time. We're in the winds of change. We're in a showdown, everybody. So let's just say a prayer right now for Juan as we close out today. And then I have an event. Juan, you could hop off when I'm done praying. I have an event coming up called Open the Heavens, California Dreamin', June 6th and 7th. It's a whole weekend, Pentecost weekend. There's going to be thousands of people being baptized at Pirates Cove down in Corona Del Mar. It's going to be significant. This is going to be more of a prophetic. It's 76 years. Lonnie Frisbee was born on D-Day 1 and June 6th. So June 6th and 7th, I'll talk about that after you go. But let's pray for Juan. So Lord, I thank you for everybody watching. Lord, we pray for Juan. We pray for President Trump. Oh, and I feel God saying, Juan, I want you to pray too. So Lord, we just bless Juan. Keep him, let your face shine upon him. Gracious to him. Lift up your countenance, grant him shalom. Help him to do everything he needs to do for the kingdom is at hand in Jesus' name. Go ahead, Juan, and then go ahead and pray, Juan.
Okay. Father God, I thank you for your people represented here who seek to do beautiful things, important things, to see truth and light coming into America, to have these dark curtains of death and destruction pulled back and folded into hell itself with the demons that came with them. We pray that you would give each of us favor before you to do righteous acts, to be clean in our ways, in ways that will bring your favor. We pray for spiritual wisdom, wisdom within the ways of the world, wisdom within our relationships, to be able to bring others along as we seek to do good and bring beauty back into our lives and the lives of those around us by doing beautiful things, important things. We pray that you would bring, by your Holy Spirit, an awareness, a sense of a moment where paths are chosen for whole lives, and that people would choose rightly a path towards life and your kingdom through the straight and narrow gate and away from destruction and sliding into Gomorrah and Sodom and hell. We pray that you would bring light into lives and power to overcome the devil and all of his machinations, all of his sorcery and relationship to deceive people into going in a hellish direction. We pray for a great revival in America through these moments that we're in right now and the moments to come, and that there would be a cleansing and a remaking of America to suit your purposes, your way, according to your will, Father God. Thy will be done. We ask for your provision and your protection as we walk and move through these things as a team, as a group, as a church. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, Juan. Well, thanks for coming on, and we welcome you coming back soon. Let's just put up that flyer really quick. Juan, I want you to maybe try to pop in on this coming up, even on Zoom. Open the Heavens, California Dreaming, everybody, June 6th and 7th at Harbor Light Church in Costa Mesa. This is right down the street where Lonnie Frisbee, who is the catalyst for the Jesus movement with Calvary Chapel and Chuck Smith, and Amy Simple McPherson students literally built that, helped build that church. And it's a very significant weekend. And then Baptized America will be on June 8th. So go to my website, marycrowley.com. You can register for free or get a VIP for $77. So open the heavens, California Dreaming. There is a greater move of God than the Jesus movement, which God's doing, and I believe that's in his name. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for coming on, Juan. We hope to see you at Open Heavens. I'll talk to you about to that, or at least
I won't be able. I'm already committed on those dates, but I may be able to zoom in. But we'll see how that works out. Yeah, I would be glad to do that. So
we
appreciate
can
all you folks. I've got to fly.
So thanks, guys. And thanks for coming on, Juan. You can leave. I'm going to talk just for a few more minutes because it's kind of loud. God bless you, Juan. Say hi to Jen.
Thanks, folks.
God bless you guys. So anyway, Open the Heavens. Yeah, it was kind of noisy with Juan. But anyway, this is Open the Heavens, Let God Arise. In the late 60s, which, is before my time. But let me tell you, there was a movement that erupted when, you had all these moves in the 60s, from the free speech movement at Berkeley to the civil rights movement with, Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King. And then you had, of course, the Black Panther movement. You had so many movements at the end of the 60s when they said God was dead. God literally brought the Jesus movement when God connected this hippie revivalist evangelist with this conservative pastor named Chuck Smith. And the rest is history. There is a movie known as The Jesus Revolution that came out in 2023, but my film called The Prodigal is about Lonnie, and it's actually going into pre-production. We've got some pretty big names in back of it. And really in the front of that flyer, you can see that's Lonnie Frisbee baptizing a woman at Pirates Cove. We're over 50.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump over to our next episode here. This is the new show that SG Anon's doing. I think it's called On the Clock with SG Anon. Let's take a look.
Good afternoon. Hello there, Patriots one and all, and welcome to the inaugural episode of On the Clock with SG Anon, a real-time research and discussion forum made possible by Q News Patriots' recent syndication agreement with Sovereign Radio and intended to provide educational and communal support for Patriots across the entirety of the world. We're going to do this with daily in-the-moment analysis and commentary about events and news that's unfolding both in the USA and abroad. I'm joined today by the hidden backbone of Q News Patriot. Many of you will know her as the wonderful executive assistant, Laura. We're going to do our best to interact with each of you in the chat today as we go along learning together. This is our first time doing it, so bear with us a little bit. It's going to be truly exciting, and feel free to share your thoughts and questions as they arise. Laura, I have to say it's really exciting being on air with you after working together for almost 2 years.
Hi, SG. Hi, everyone. Yes, it's such an honor. First of all, it's an honor to work with you. But second of all, it's an honor to be doing this live broadcast with you. I set up so many, so it's strange to be on air with you. But it is truly an honor. Thank you so much. And it's really nice to be speaking with everyone else.
I think we're going to have a great time. And for the folks out there, you have to keep in mind that Laura is overly humble and overly modest. She really does make the program, go around in true form and fashion these days. So we're going to get right into it. As we get started, Patriots, I just want to remind each of you that today's episode of On the Clock is sponsored by the energy wellness technology called Body Align. For those out there who don't know, Body Align is essentially an electromagnetic modulation tech in the form of specially engineered patches that can be worn on both the body or placed onto your electronic devices at home. I've actually used Body Align's products myself for a while now, several years, and I keep the patches on the backside of my personal cell phone and work computer. I credit them with stopping a horrible ear ringing that I used to have in my former career after I would spend several hours on the phone with my clients. So before you disconnect today, consider checking out bodyalign.com/SGOTC. That's bodyalign.com/SGOTC if you'd like to learn more about that impressive energy wellness invention. We're going to get started today, Patriots, talking a little bit about POTUS 45 through 47. I think it's really amazing the things that we're seeing over there in the Middle East. This was actually Laura's idea to get started in this area. And so we're going to come over here. We're going to do a little bit of breakdown and discussion, some screen sharing. Bear with me for just a moment. All right. Hang on here. We're working through a small StreamYard. All right, let's go and select window or screen. There's our window right there. We're going to bring that over. So I hope everyone can see what is on the screen in front of them here. So here we're coming over to Rapid Response 47. This is a fantastic little research funnel for folks out there that are trying to understand both what President Trump is physically doing on the surface level, the publicly visible level in the world, but also trying to divine a little bit of what's happening behind the scenes. It's no accident, obviously, that we're spending time in the Middle East right now. It's no accident that Crown Prince bin Salman was the first stop in this process. It's no accident that that stop happened exactly 8 years ago to the month, as we can see here on our screen from Rapid Response 47. We're going to go through some of these today. But what's happening fundamentally in the Middle East, Patriots, is a significant amount of geopolitical realignment that's occurring. And if you notice, they are specifically sidelining a very interested and very war-happy party over there alongside the coastline of the Eastern Med. I'll let each of you figure out which party is being sidelined. So for this one right here, we're going to listen to President Trump just for a moment talking about standing in the room at the Saudi Investment Forum and forcing the forces of terrorism right out of existence. Here we go.
Exactly 8 years ago this month, I stood in this very room and looked forward to a future in which the nations of this region would drive the forces of terrorism and extremism, drive them right out of existence, and take your place among the proudest, most prosperous, most successful nations anywhere in the world.
So, Patriots, that's peacemaker language right there. And if you notice the appeal, it seems obvious, but it's worth breaking it down a little bit. The appeal here is in shared prosperity and business relationship. In other words, shared commerce. And what has the entirety of the last 8 years focused a great deal upon? It's focused upon currency revaluation, leveling the playing field internationally, getting control of things like the right to issue money at the highest levels of society, getting control of the families behind the Bank of International Settlements, right? So this message should not be overlooked. We are now using our control of international commerce and economic exchange to force a complete geostrategic realignment of the Middle East itself. And the Middle East for the last half century has been a hotbed, and really a lot longer than that. But just for purposes of today's discussion, for the last half century has been a major hotbed of unstable activity, of travel advisories out there in the world concerning chaos, all of these different areas of life that are undesirable. But yet we're seeing right now in real time President Trump telling us that this is not the way that we're going to proceed forward. And of course, again, it's not an accident that we went to Crown Prince bin Salman for our first stop. So with that, we're going to stop sharing just for a moment. Laura, I want to throw it over to you for a little bit of thoughts and commentary on that. I'm going to queue up our next video here while we're doing that.
Well, I was super excited to see it happen. And when I went back into my memory and realized he was over there in May of this year, I was like, holy S. He was there in May 2017. That was the capitulation tour. And I thought it was absolutely incredible when I saw that when he and Melania got off of Air Force One back in 2017, they had rolled out the red carpet. This time they rolled out the purple carpet, purple meaning royalty. And another thing that I picked up on was that the Prince Solomon met him at Air Force One personally. And that is not something that is done often, if ever. And I thought that was a really big sign for us who kind of think along the Q lines and think about the fact that there's more going on behind the scenes than what you're seeing. And it's been exciting to kind of see it hit the quote unquote mainstream media, because I was watching Fox News and Jesse was talking about it and breaking it down, and kind of made me wonder if maybe he thinks the way that we think as well, because he was saying some stuff about purple being royalty and then the prince greeting him, things that I was picking up on, he was like reiterating live. So it was just really exciting to see. And as I was also watching the broadcast, someone had made a comment about what was going on. And I said to the TV, yeah, it's peace. It's going to be peace in the Middle East. And then the next thing the guy said goes, it's peace in the Middle East. And I was just like, just floored.
Sort of like Tippy Top back in the day, we're getting constant reminders and reinforcement that patriots are in control, that this is a coordinated operation at some degree. And really, at the end of the day, we could even characterize it as a cooperative arrangement, a common understanding amongst living men, right? We can talk about operations all day long, and those are certainly true and certainly ongoing. I talked about Operation Blackwater Shield not that long ago on Audio File 93, but fundamentally, we're seeing the cooperative commonality of understanding between living men across nation states triumphing, for lack of a better term, over this globalist misdirection sleight of hand agenda, which has sought to enslave all of us across all of our nation state borders. And that's something I think that provides us this realization of being the great equalizer. We've been equalized in this process because it has been an us versus them war at all levels across all countries. And Carolyn Levitt reminded us a little bit of some of the goals of that war in this post taken from the 14th. So just yesterday around 4:00 in the morning. Today, President Trump, at the invitation of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, met with Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara. President Erdogan of Turkey joined by phone. So in the first couple of sentences here, we're seeing all of the major power players across the central Middle East, outside of Iraq, Iran, and Israel, named as cooperative arrangements, cooperative engagements, maybe is a better way to say it, with President Trump. President Erdogan praised the president for lifting sanctions on Syria and committed to working alongside Saudi Arabia to encourage peace and prosperity in Syria. So we have to keep in mind who installed the Syrian government, right? We have to look at the connections to the current Syrian government, the post-Bashar al-Assad government, back to the IDF, for example, back to the community in Tel Aviv. We also have to look at connections to that community with the Western world intelligentsia, statecraft apparatus. So think U.S. State Department, a great deal of intelligence community money, nation state building money, UN, NGO money, all of that ties back to the current government in Syria right now. The Crown Prince also commended President Trump for his decision to lift the sanctions, calling it courageous. President Trump thanked Erdogan and the Crown Prince for their friendship and told President al-Shara of Syria that he has a tremendous opportunity to do something historic in his country. President Trump encouraged al-Shara to do a great job for the Syrian people and urged him to sign on to the Abraham Accords with Israel, tell all foreign terrorists to leave Syria, deport Palestinian terrorists. Now, that's worthwhile to keep in mind, right? We didn't say deport Palestinian refugees, deport those that are terroristic, right? Hamas did not reflect for over 20 years or coming up on 20 years, excuse me. Hamas has not reflected the will of the Palestinian people there on the ground in Gaza. It's been a statecraft, nation-building apparatus for a long time. President al-Shara thanked President Trump, the Crown Prince, and Erdogan for their efforts to put together the meeting and recognized the opportunity presented by the Iranians leaving Syria, as well as a shared U.S.-Syrian interest in countering terrorism and eliminating chemical weapons. Now, Patriots, if you remember in 2017, we saw 60-plus Tomahawk missiles very early on in the first Trump presidency flying into Syria, and the cover story given was that we were striking chemical weapons depots that Bashar al-Assad had utilized against his own people. But Q told us a different story about that, and I think the drop was 1001, where Q basically said, you said it without saying, that the reason we struck Syria was not because of chemical weapons on behalf of Assad, but it was because of a secret off-book Iranian nuclear site that was weaponizing uranium and had utilized or was utilizing stockpiles of U.S. uranium that had been skimmed off of the Uranium One deal brokered between Canada, the United States, and Russia. And that particular nuclear site was going to be used to produce a dirty nuclear bomb with a radiation signature that would tie back to Russia, igniting a modern nuclear war. So this type of situation, countering terrorism and eliminating chemical weapons, the exact same language. And I think that we can divine from that while that may be true in some regards, we also likely have other issues at play here, right? The same language utilized to describe the same areas of geography and situational circumstances over a longitudinal period of time. Oftentimes we have to look at that message beneath the message, or what that pattern could very well be. Al-Shara affirmed his commitment to the 1974 disengagement with Israel, and he concluded with his hope that Syria would serve as a critical link in facilitating trade between the East and the West, and invited American companies to invest in Syrian oil and gas. So this right here is another major indicator of what's going on the ground, right? We have an invitation being extended to American civilian authorities to come into the countryside and begin basically developing and assisting in the development of Syrian resources. We would hope that those resources are not going to be fleeced like they have been fleeced in decades past by the American war machine and the American paramilitary intelligence apparatus that has been absolutely destroying all of the resource valuation and resource stockpiles across the Middle East for a long time. But this represents, in my opinion, a fundamental shift away from that. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Laura, for some comment on this particular portion as well.
Well, yeah, here again, Trump is MAGA. He's looking out for America. And I think it's really cool that he is inviting American companies to go into these countries, because normally, it's like China's over here, right? China has the factories. Companies go to China to produce things. And now I think it's opening up America to enter into the global market with American companies. So I think that's wonderful. And another thing that I thought was interesting was in his first meeting with Saudi Arabia, bringing forth a few different CEOs from big companies. I think BlackRock was one that stood out. And there was, I think, the AI company, if I'm wrong, there was a CEO from them, and there was different ones. And I thought, well, that's strange. And then I thought more about it, and I remembered he likes to put these people in the limelight, in the spotlight, and expose them, kind of let them, I guess, hang themselves. But I thought it was interesting that he included them in his meeting that first day.
I have to say, I think I would agree with a great deal of that. When we look at what is going on in the Middle East, and really with the entirety of President Trump's now second, half world tour, for lack of a better term, I think what we've got, fleshing out before us, and correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but it looks very much like a check-in between the alliance forces that sort of established themselves on this rocky trust dynamic about 8 years ago. 7 or 8 years ago, depending on how you want to slice that, but are now sort of, coming back around, circling back around for this update period. And we went through a period of time here, and it's worth pointing this out for the audience out there. When we look at foreign politics, foreign policy, international relations, nation state customs, things like that nature, the United States of America just basically went dark for 4 years. And so the rest of the planet did not really understand, didn't really have a good pulse on what was going on with the actual levers and chains of power inside the United States. So you saw a lot of, that alliance between 2017 and 2021, I think, really got tested in a great deal. How much are they willing to trust one another? How much are they willing to trust their own selfish aims, right? President Trump wants to make America great again. President Putin wants to make Russia great again. Crown Prince bin Salman wants Saudi Arabia to be great, right? I would even venture so far as to say that patriotic forces inside the Tehranian government, the Iran government there in Tehran, they also want their culture to be great, to be amplified and respected worldwide, to be known for the things that they're able to produce and produce very well. So in a lot of ways, and this is just how it strikes me so far, but it's like we're seeing a reminder, hey, I didn't go away. I really am back. Things really are under control. Laura, what are your thoughts on that? And I'm going to come over here to the chat box while we're talking about that.
Well, I think that you're seeing that, especially when he was visiting Saudi Arabia. And it's kind of like, it really got me excited because I was like, America's back. Trump is back. The man is back. GOAT, greatest of all time. He's back. He commands respect and he gets respect. And that is what, as a country, we need a leader who is going to be that for us. And it always, makes me scratch my head on, it's such a simple philosophy. Make America great again. Why? I want my country to be, that I live in, to be the best it can be. I want Russia to be the best that it can be. I want France to be the best that it can be. Why is that such a weird philosophy? And that's why I love Trump being our leader, because I truly feel that that is what he wants, and he proves it to us. He's not all talk. He proves it to us. You see it happen, and it's exciting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, Laura. I'm going to come over here. You talk about seeing things happening here. So one of the things that I picked up on so far with this tour, and we're seeing it even as recently as today, if I'm not mistaken, but we had President Trump multiple times, and really this goes all the way back to late last year, right after the November election of 2024. We see President Trump saluting the American national anthem, saluting the flag, saluting service members. And military customs actually, they're not fully clear on when the commander-in-chief is and is not supposed to salute, during war and peacetime. But the general custom accepted is taken from 36 U.S. Code 301 surrounding the national anthem. Conduct during playing, when the flag is displayed, individuals in uniform should give the military salute. Members of the armed forces and veterans who are present but not in uniform may also render the salute. And all other persons present should face the flag, stand at attention with their right hand over the heart. Men not in uniform, if applicable, should remove a headdress and hold it at their left shoulder. So, we come over here to where's it at? Military customs, the Department of Defense military customs surrounding this issue. In civilian clothes, if you're in uniform and you recognize an officer in civilian clothes, you should initiate the proper greeting and salute. And it basically says, in time of war, an officer may not be maybe deliberately trying to avoid disclosure, so practice deference. And then if we come down here to page 13 in this document, national anthem and flag honors. Indoors, if the flag is displayed when the anthem is played, you face the flag and stand at attention. If in uniform and covered, render the hand salute. If in civilian clothes or if in uniform and uncovered, place your right hand over your heart. So we have President Trump multiple times, let's go ahead and watch this, saluting the American national anthem. If you notice, the only other individuals there saluting are active military personnel. Something else that's very worth noting here, Patriots, is that you have military personnel from coalition, aligned, and joint force partners also saluting the American national anthem.
Yeah, that really blew me away when I saw that too. I thought that was amazing.
And President Trump holds the salute the entire time. All right, if we come over here, he did it again at the Qatari State Dinner in Doha. We're not going to watch the entire video this time, but just to showcase. Hand over heart over here. Military salute here. Deference and respect paid by those individuals over on the far side. And then this is one that I found very, very interesting. And this is during his meeting with Saudi royal officials. These are joint force partners that are saluting, in my opinion, the current Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Coalition Military Alliance. That's why you have the salute being rendered. And it is in alignment with DoD customs and law of war wisdom and doctrine around the world that a joint force coalition will exercise adherence to the customs, regulations, duties, and laws in the military sense of whatever country happens to be leading that joint force coalition. So you're witnessing evidence right here in real time, Patriots, that at the very least the stop in Saudi Arabia was partially to remind the world that we do have a cooperative arrangement, that there is an alliance, moving that needle forward at the international, the geopolitical, the militarized level. We know from the Q drops the importance of Saudi Arabia and how one side of the pyramid was freed for the first time under that Trump administration going back to Saudi Arabia. So, Patriots, one of the things that is so compelling about what we're seeing, in my opinion, with respect to this movement from President 45, 46, 47 around the world right now is that we're seeing a reignition, a next phase, a check-in, a status update, if you will, for a broader, coalition, for lack of a better term, a broader cooperative front around the world that is seeking to pin down who? We're seeking to pin down the central banking mafia. We're seeking to pin down the intelligentsia factions that fund and commit terrorism. We're seeking to pin down and draw out those infiltrative and sabotage components inside our nation states. It's one of the reasons you're seeing so much military action inside of various nations around the planet, really as a point of pride, everything from military parades to certain security operations that we've seen in Africa, right? All of this shaking the cage enough, shaking the tree, so that problematic fruit will be forced to fall out. It's really an amazing and exciting time to be alive. Laura, I'm going to let you comment on that just for a moment. I'm going to go over here and pull up the actual law of war, the international law of war doctrine. I want to read that for the Patriots out there so they understand the significance of the video that we just watched.
Yeah, it's great to finally start to see things come to the forefront, for sure. We've been waiting quite a long time for this. And I know when Biden was installed in 2021, how upset I was in the beginning. But then as time went on, I realized it needed to be done. It needed to be done to wake everyone up. It needed to be done to save our country, as crazy as that sounds, because we needed to take the reins back. And the only way we were going to do it is if we were going to live through an experience that wasn't very pleasant. And some people still stuck their head in the sand, but other patriots, like the ones that are listening to this broadcast, I'm sure, didn't. And we woke up, and now I can see more and more how that 4 years of Biden, the pretend president, was felt throughout the whole world. And it's like you see the excitement of these countries now that Trump is back at the helm in the forefront.
That's a really good thing to highlight, I think, is the ease with which a lot of these countries are responding to the developing situation around the planet, and it's like we've lived enough once in a lifetime historic events, I think, over the last 5 to 10 years, really, going on 25 years for most of us out there. But we've lived enough of that caliber of event that it's almost boring to talk about these world changing, generational, once in a lifetime, once in a century style things that continue to happen right in front of our very eyes, day after day, week after week, month after month. An American sitting president visited the Emir of Qatar and the Emir of the United Arab Emirates just in the last 48 hours and is reigniting patriotic cooperative spirit, a pride in national identity throughout the Middle Eastern nations, which in our Western world were absolutely demonized nonstop, really in a saturation fashion, going all of the way back to the days of the Iran-Contra. I want to comment for a moment really quickly here, come back here for another direction in just a second. But with respect to the videos we were just watching with all of those, military personnel, foreign military personnel saluting President Trump there on the ground in Saudi Arabia, under the law of war, which is also international humanitarian law, and the law, let me see here, the law of armed conflict. That's the correct terminology for it. This joint doctrine provides a framework primarily emanating from Joint Publication 1-0 for how U.S. military forces, including those involved in multinational operations, should function. The law of war applies to all members of a coalition, regardless of national origin, and the Joint Force Commander is responsible for ensuring compliance. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Saluting is a military custom with a storied history that demonstrates respect and acknowledgement of authority within the chain of command and is often performed to show respect to senior officers and dignitaries, and under coalition arrangements should include the Joint Force Commander. So what you just saw, in my opinion, Patriots, was evidence that we are still in a worldwide covert warfare operation that is forcing, again, putting pressure against the glass for those forces out there that are not on the side of we the people to show themselves out, to come out into the light, to demonstrate their fealty one way or another. And once they have done so, we can then draw back and move forward from that process, establish how we're going to proceed. I want to pivot, though, because we saw something really, really fascinating that happened just yesterday around 6 o'clock in the evening. The post was put out 6 o'clock in the evening. It happened during yesterday's visit with Qatar, that the Emir of Qatar presented POTUS with a ball, a soccer ball. Remember that, Patriots, a soccer ball from the 2022 FIFA World Cup, which signified the transfer to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which is to be held in the United States, right? So I'm not going to read too far into this and speculate outside of my purview here, but we all know what happened with the last soccer ball and what immediately began occurring in the area of Eastern Europe just a few years after that soccer ball exchange. When the United States went into a live action continuity of government exercise, we saw an actionable warfare scenario break out in Eastern Europe, with the Russian military primarily at the forefront of that, to destroy what? To destroy child and human trafficking, to destroy organ harvesting, to destroy very large kidnapping corridors, to destroy underground dungeons, to destroy medical experimentation laboratories held beneath children's hospitals, various health clinics, veterinary institutions, to destroy biological laboratories masquerading as animal research centers and things of that nature, right? So all of that occurring just a few short years after that Helsinki summit with the soccer ball. And here we have a soccer ball again being presented to President Trump, but this time from the Emir of Qatar. And for those out there that are familiar with Qatar's history, it does have a significant history tying back to that bloody wonderland and that worldwide intelligentsia community that we've talked about many, many times. Again, it seems almost boring, but it's the same overall forces responsible for a lot of this stuff. So let me come back over here. I'm going to share this screen. We're going to watch this. All right, here we are, the presentation of the FIFA soccer ball from 2022, the same cup, by the way, that Elon Musk was present at. If we look back, and I remember that, and if I'm not mistaken, it might have been FIFA, it might have been the Super Bowl. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on that, Patriots. But at one of those two large events, we saw Elon Musk basically hobnobbing with Jared Kushner. So here we go. And watch this. About a 2.5 minute clip or so, a little bit longer than that. As I understand it, this is the president of FIFA right here. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Think contract law, think jurisdictional law, financial cooperative arrangements, right? Those types of things, the binding of a signature on an item, the binding of an autograph on an item. And if I'm not mistaken, Patriots, I have some color deficiencies actually in my eyes, to tell you the truth, a little bit of a personal note, but that appears gold to me.
It definitely looks like a dirty ball. It looks like a dirty ball. It's like an off-white. Maybe it was do you think it was the ball where they won the last FIFA, or the FIFA match in 2022?
You know, it says right there that comes from the 2022 FIFA World Cup. I'd be surprised if it's not the victory ball. And then here is our transfer over. We're lacking the audio on this end. It's very self-fade. You can hear it in the video shared on the Rapid Response 47 profile, but it is, again, it's very faded in the background there. That looks like Treasury Secretary Bessent. So this another very significant event that's occurring here, right? And this color pattern right here, it is worth remembering, Patriots, that this is an official ribbon color of the United States Army. And we saw President Trump feature this particular tie color a couple of times before on the 2024 campaign trail. So again, tying back to a broader cooperative strategic alliance that's going on. It's not just geopolitical, it is more than that, but geopolitical fundamentally is the underpinning for how we secure it long term, right? We cannot proceed forward in the world in the fashion that we have been. That's fundamentally an unsustainable model to have. And so we see that, I think, evidenced out by trips like this and others. It's also worth noting that along in this Middle East trip, President Trump has talked a couple of times to some of these leaders about the Russia-Ukraine war. It's worth noting that Russia, Iran, and North Korea are highlighted by Q as having established a closed financial system between the two of them. There's the official unveiling of the transfer right there. So when we look at revaluing and adjusting a lot of those commerce markets, right, and when we look at this establishing a framework for strategic cooperation, we're seeing the exact same landscape playing out as we saw under that first Trump administration, but with a much more accelerated lens on it. All of these events happening just in the first 5 months of this year. I think we're 127 or 130 days, not even 130 days into this particular Trump presidency. So with that, I find it very, very compelling and very, very encouraging what we're seeing with President Trump, and also what we're seeing with the cooperative arrangements that were struck just a few days prior to all of these Middle Eastern tour events that President Trump has undertaken in the last 4 to 5 days or so. We've seen a massive amount of progress made on the other side of the coin with respect to President Xi and Russia. The two of them, President Putin and President Xi, having a very long discussion off camera during the Moscow Victory Day parades, and rumors coming out of Russian media. I think it was reported by TASS that a deepening partnership between the countries economically and from a resource lens was discussed in some of those meetings. So we're seeing, in my opinion, the continuation of moving that needle into the Great Awakening and redefining this world. And again, just in my opinion, but this can only force those forces in every nation state, both in the Middle East, in Europe, in South America, eventually, certainly those forces here in the United States of America, Western Europe, and the former Commonwealth realms, they have to present themselves and come out into the light in this process, either falling with us or against us, but there really is no in between.
I totally agree with you. I think that a lot of these world leaders are more connected in a positive way than they come across at times. And I think that you see that underneath the Trump presidency, because he has an innate talent to bring people together. And as many, his critics will say how he separates people, but those people just don't understand him. They don't understand how he works. And you see it. You can't deny that he does not bring countries together and ultimately the world together. And I mean, as far as the money goes, what about Saudi Arabia coming up and announcing that they were pledging $600 billion in U.S. investments in spanning weapons purchases, technology transfers, artificial intelligence, and ultimately committing up to $1 trillion. So that's amazing. That's amazing over the next 10 years. I wanted to ask you, SG, do you want to take a couple questions?
Well, let's move into the second part, come into the endings, because I don't want to wax on these broadcasts for folks out there. We're not going to wax just on the geopolitical, just on the international events, the domestic events commentary. All of those are important. Meets us right here at home, meets us right here in our community. A couple of disgruntled comments talking about the price of gas. And I would just remind people that a transition period where we're fixing 50 plus years of screwing things up does take a little bit of time. And there's a little bit of an adjustment period in that process. We didn't get a handle on being able to adjust any of that until that live action continuity of government exercise between 2017 and the present day in time, right? And again, we're attempting, right, 50 to 60 plus years of just the current iteration of things happening out there in the world. And that culture war comes down to us right in our communities. It's no secret. I haven't made a secret with the audience at any point along the way that I have a little kiddo of my own. That kiddo is first grade age range, right around that area. And so I was surprised and not surprised when I saw some of the things going on culturally right here in my own community, being pushed out by the school indoctrination system. And with the types of parental arrangements that I have with, my son's mother, a great human being of her own right, but the types of arrangements we have, we're not actually able to do a private situation or a homeschool situation. Just for all the naysayers out there, before we get started on this, you have to sort of work in alignment and cooperation with your fellow man. But with respect to that, one of the things I want to show everyone is what your first graders, your second graders, your third graders, your elementary age children are actually doing when they go to school throughout the day in a given period of time before you pick them up in the evening time, or you were a family member or a loved one. And some of those involve some pretty significant, what I would characterize as moderately offensive in some regards, and certainly concerning media that they have full and unfettered access to by way of computer games. So coming over here, I'm just going to bring up the exact website. It is, of course, a website that is primarily powered and underpinned by Google and Google's large-scale internet server and internet processing capabilities. Google, by the way, is in every single public school system in the United States of America. And if you try to say that it's not in your system, in your own local community, you've not done enough research on it, because I assure you that it is. And what they have through this particular game forum that they offer for these elementary age students is a little bit concerning to me. But I thought we would go through it together, and we'll just let the general public decide for themselves. So the website, as you can see, is sites.google.com/view/drive-u-7-home new games. These are games that are unblocked. Google characterizes them as child appropriate, unblocked, and unbanned games. You can find everything from dune buggying to Spider-Man, hero things over here. Stickman, SWAT, escape games, flood runners, all sorts of different games. But the content of the games, Patriots, is always the issue here. It's no different than you can have a very nicely titled book, but it's always about the content of the book. What's actually between the covers? What's between the pages? So coming down here, we're going to go through just a couple of them. Granny versus Baby was one that I thought was relatively, inappropriate for young children. I am going to go ahead and turn the sound off on my home device here. Laura, can you still hear me on the back side now that I've done that?
Yep, I hear you.
All right, I don't think I could hear you back on that, so I guess I'm going to have to leave that on for the moment. But so we're going to come over here, and we're just going to click to play. And we're going to allow the pop-up for this particular website. Now, again, folks, these are the types of games that your elementary age school children are playing at home. Oh, and it looks like my VPN may be causing us some issues on that. Let's try and reload that page and see if we can't get past those issues. Maybe the VPN will adjust. There it is. It adjusted just fine. All right, and so this is our setup here. I believe that is the Russian flag, if I'm not mistaken. This meaning the word for start. There's an ad that one has to click. Instructions. And unfortunately, Patriots, the only reason that I'm aware of this particular game itself at all is because I have an elementary-aged little one who was very excited to show this to me.
Oh, so you didn't know about it until he came home and said, "Daddy, look what we're doing at school"?
Correct. No, in America's public education system, patriots out there are not really aware and haven't been aware for a long time that media overall does not require your consent or permission. By your registration of those of any children that you have into that public education system, they have essentially assumed any permissions, any acquiescence on your part as a parent is contained within that registration, and they class this, believe it or not, as educational material.
Well, I think it's just another way for them to brainwash future generations, dumb the future generations down, and just cause a whole lot of problems, brain-related problems, eye-related problems from staring at these screens all the time. And my daughter, Tara, is a middle school teacher. And even my other daughter, Madison, mentioned that all the kids have laptops in school. And my daughter, Tara, said that she would quiz the kids on their homework. They would come back with their homework and it would be perfect. And then she would quiz the kids to see what they knew. And they'd say, "Oh, we went home and AI did the homework for us." So the AI is potentially going to be a huge problem going forward. We got to have to figure out how to control this, because there again, it's another tool to dumb down future generations and ultimately control.
Indeed, this one right here I want to highlight for the audience out there. So your first graders are learning how to shoot one another in wartime when they go to public school. Now, every school is going to be different. I don't want to be overly generalistic here, but fundamentally, Patriots, something that we have to keep in mind is that indoor recess, in other words, when weather is bad outside, or when the students are just not simply able to, go outside and release that energy or whatever, they're given things like computer games to entertain them and to occupy them, of course, to keep them, quite frankly, from tearing into one another at different points along the way. But these are the types of games that are happening, right? You can actually hear, I don't know if the audience out there can hear that, but there's actually gunshots sounding in the background of this particular video game. This is a video game that many years ago would have been marketed to teenagers, probably, rated T for teen, I would say 14, 15, 16-year-old age range. Some out there may remember the early computer video games that were centered around something called the Medal of Honor series. And so again, these are, when we consider neuro-linguistic programming, when we consider predictive programming, what are we teaching our children to do? Well, first of all, we're disconnecting their attention span. We're exposing them to a great deal of gun violence and just general violence towards their fellow human being. We're exposing them to very odd, what I would class as sort of, extreme caricatures of individuals. The granny versus baby game we were on a moment ago, a number of these types of things. This one, again, taken looks like from a Russian inspiration here, but a number of these types of things have real world implications and real world consequences for what children are exposed to. Children are tiny little sponges, especially at the elementary school range. They form a great deal of their belief system about the world. They form a great deal of how they expect their overall world to be during that period of time. It's one of the reasons we try to keep them, as balanced and as stable as we can, especially in their physical rigor and their emotional rigor as they go through those developmental periods, because they will eventually become a reflection of that which they are exposed to the greatest deal and with the greatest frequency and quantity throughout that period of time. This one, a zombie game. Let me see here. We'll go out there. Oh, so it's actually a shooting the zombies game, and complete with the blood and everything. So again, this is your first grade game. This is your elementary school game that's happening inside the American public education system, right in front of our very eyes and right underneath parents' very noses. So with that, Laura, you're a mother to a couple. Your children are grown by this point in time. Mine's, about a generation or so behind on that issue. So I thought I would let you sort of take it away for your commentary, and also maybe give us an idea of the difference in the extracurricular entertainment when your girls were in school versus my little one now.
Well, this just infuriates me. It really infuriates me, because you send your children to school to learn. You're not sending them to school to program. One of the big reasons why I'm not a big fan of college, because I've witnessed it myself. Luckily, my kids have kind of made a full circle, but in the first early years of college, they were starting to get brainwashed to become liberal, and I sent them off conservative. They have come back, thank God. But this is just another sign that as parents, we have to get to those school board meetings. We have to gain some power. It's really just us fighting this huge machine. And it's going to take time to bring the machine down. I personally think that people should homeschool, but that, not everybody can do that because you have to work. So that's another topic for another day. But I do know that I would be very upset if my child came home and said, "Oh, look what I've been doing at school, Mom," and it was playing those violent games. How can your son tell the difference between a zombie in real world, or it could be some drug addict, right? And then he's being trained to go after people who act like those people in the video games. It's just extremely inappropriate and very sad, and we have to do something about it.
It reminds me of the social engineering that seems to occur in our societal and the societal conditioning with placement of certain brick and mortar style arrangements, right? I talked recently on AudioFile 93 about how you often see the infrastructure needed for mass kidnapping and abductions concentrated geographically relatively close together. Things like warehouses, railroad tracks, airports being very close by. A lot of times these corridors, come very close to port areas inside port cities in the United States, right? Because these, of course, are vectors for getting out into international jurisdiction and international law. But the same overarching principle, and I was called paranoid for a number of years because I highlighted this endlessly in my post-collegiate days, but the same underpinning principle applies to the idea that you have a liquor store on the corner of an intersection of, say, 5th and Main, and then directly across the intersection, catty-cornered to the liquor store, is an ammunition and gun shop. And so when we look at, and then maybe a block up the road is a smoke shop peddling psychoactive material or these cheap knockoff products that do not have a good clinical study body behind them. We don't have a good literature about them. We don't really know fundamentally what they do. Things like Kratom, for example. I've heard other things like Delta 8 intersecting with the youthful generations of these days. I'm not even sure what that is. It's supposedly, I guess, a derivative of cannabis of some kind. But fundamentally, with all of these being relatively geographically close together. And you can see this pattern, Patriots, in your own community. If you just drive around a little bit, you'll notice that there is almost like a bent in that direction towards violence and death, right? The average American child between the age of 0 and 17 will witness 154,000 on-screen human deaths by virtue of the cinema that they intake in that period of time, right? So we have a bent clearly towards this death and violence in our culture, and we have to be consciously aware of it, but not so engaged with it that we are helpless to put together a solution, right? We have to be aware of the problem, but not so consumed by the problem that our ability to think, respond, situationally assess, and plan a plan of attack and a plan of action moving forward to prevent that problem from surfacing again. We can't allow ourselves to be sucked into that. So, with that, Laura, have you seen over your lifespan in the areas that you've lived, I think you've been across a couple of different U.S. states up and down the East Coast, have you seen the same sort of societal constructs as the one I just described, or no?
Are you talking about having a liquor store and a gun store in the same corner? Is that what you mean?
That example for sure, but any other examples as well that you feel like would lend themselves to a dispositional bent towards violence?
Well, I think that, first of all, there's no coincidences with what you were talking about having a gun store across from a liquor store, et cetera. But I come back to really having strong opinions about the video games and the video games in general. I was not super strict with my daughters, but I always liked to know what they were playing. Having girls is different than boys. Boys they target the boys for the violent games more than the girls. But I feel like they use these games to desensitize. Just like things on TV, they use it to desensitize people. And so they show it to you a couple times and you get desensitized. So then when it happens again, you just kind of like, oh, well, I've already seen it. It doesn't have that impact, right? So over time, they desensitize and they program you. And I 100% think that's what they're doing to the children.
Sorry there, I had a little bit of a microphone delay, but I think I would agree with that. And I think that's one of the things that we have to acknowledge is at play in our society. It is the cultural engineering. It is the for lack of a better term, that sort of predictive programming, that predictive environment that I would say cultural masters from a day gone by, those that are, in the service of the old guard, have been attempting to force onto the rest of us and sort of create this self-perpetuating world for a very long time. And I want to bring up something here for the audience, because when we talk about the broader suppression of the human spirit, when we talk about the broader suppression of things like what's going on with children at their levels of innocence, like the ones that we've just described, right? I think we have to look a little deeper actually into what's actually at play here, because those emotional, Laura, you talked about desensitization. So fundamentally, that ties back to the emotional makeup of the human body as well. If we feel secure, stable, and happy, we're much more resilient as human beings than if we feel frightful, unsure, confused, and afraid. And that's exactly the type of warped manipulation that I think we're seeing on full display with things like what I just showed the audience. But here's an example of the type of activity that's actually occurring at the physics level, at the actual, what we would call the subatomic or the imperceptible level out there. Let me bring this up for the audience out there.
One more thing I just thought of too is by getting these kids addicted to these video games and TV shows, etc., it's killing the creativity. They're not playing the music. They're not drawing. They're not painting. They're not doing the things that gave them the emotional and creative outlets. They're killing all of that.
And in my opinion, if I can be so bold, I believe the reason they're killing it is because of this right here. This is Kirlian photography. The individual behind this particular modality of image capture was named Dr. Simeon Kirlian. This is from the early 20th century. It's a technology from the early 20th century. And it is able to actually capture some of the electro field that is generated by the nervous system's activity inside the human body itself. The human body is a conductive organism. We are 70+% water. We have a mixture of salts inside our body that helps us, govern that conductivity. Our mitochondria are fundamentally, energy generators at that cellular level. DNA strands themselves are the intersections of matter and light. We've proven that out now through photonics and biophotonics. So in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, but when we talk about warping that sensitization, when we talk about augmenting that perception, forcing that suppressive change inside the human body and inside the human psyche at a very fragile, vulnerable level. We're talking fundamentally about augmenting this. Here's another example of it taken. This is a Shutterstock image from the magnetic field that is generated by the heart. And you'll hear people talk often about how your bioelectric or your biomagnetic, field that emanates from your body goes out about the same length as your wingspan, maybe a little bit further than that, depending on what kind of an emotional and mental state that you happen to be in. But fundamentally, if you can screw with this, for lack of a better term, if you can destabilize the resilience and the coherence of this field, you have to consider too that destabilization is happening within the organism itself, right? We are flesh, blood, and bone, but we are so much more. We are also light. We are also energy. We are also frequency. These are things that are proven by a whole host of EKGs and electroencephalographs and, some of this image capture right here and more. So fundamentally, when we talk about actually getting a handle, maybe is the best way to say, when we talk about reorienting the culture war, it's not just enough to talk about what President Trump is doing overseas, right? We have to come back and we have to say, okay, well, we have evidence there that we have victory, certainly in the works, and certainly being demonstrated for us, we the people, but this is at a nation state level. We the people inside our nation states have to be actively involved in our communities, in our states, in whatever vector or whatever localized arena that we can physically interface with. We have to be involved with them however we feel pulled to and however we feel called to, because it is all about us. President Trump can fix a great deal of the federal government of the United States. And because of that, a great deal of international and nation state level problems like large scale black market criminality, money laundering like you wouldn't believe, trafficking and smuggling of various things like you wouldn't believe. A lot of those will resolve themselves throughout getting control of that federal government here in the United States. But a number of problems are yet still going to remain even after that, because the president is not constitutionally endowed to go and remake the entire country in his image. It does have to be all of us getting involved in our communities, in our towns, with our neighbors, with each other, and reminding one another that there are certain things that are fun and acceptable and perhaps even wholesome. You can use video games to teach cooking skills. You can use video games to teach, holistic gardening skills. YouTube itself is essentially the largest video how-to database that exists currently in the entire world right now, but you can also accomplish a great deal of evil and a great deal of large-scale societal level destabilization if these types of issues are not handled with care, talked about, and really, fleshed out and evidenced out between the interactions of patriots out there across the entirety of the nation. So with that, we're moving into our closing segment. Laura, I'm going to ask you for some final thoughts. I'll remind everyone where they can find the Q News Patriot and who's making this particular broadcast possible today. But please give us a little bit of closing thoughts as we move into our last couple of minutes here.
Well, I totally agree with what you just said. And what it made me think of was taking it back to 1776 and the founding fathers. I kind of feel like we're in that moment again, because Trump, he can lay the foundation and he can help kind of right the ship again. And I know a lot of people are frustrated that things aren't happening fast enough, or is anything even happening and everything. And I try to give people the analogy of a big barge. And if you're driving a big barge and you want to go in the other direction, well, you've got some speed going on and you've got a lot of weight with that barge. It takes a while to slow it down and then make the turn and then start heading in the other direction. And so I think that we have to remember that we have to be patient. And we also have to remember that Trump is not God. He is here to help lay the foundation and bring it back to that 1776 moment, in my opinion. But it ultimately is going to come down to us saving ourselves. And Q said that all along. We are going to be the ones to save ourselves. And if you remember what Trump said in his historic inaugural speech with the servicemen behind him, he said, "I'm giving the country back to you, the people." And I will never forget that just chilling goosebump moment. in that speech. Thanks for having me with you, SG. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I have to say it's been a lot of fun and very well said closing remarks there. Patriots, I hope you've really enjoyed our discussion today, our first On the Clock with SG and On broadcast. As a reminder, this show made possible by Bodyalign. You can learn more about Bodyalign at bodyalign.com/SGOTC. We'll see each and every one of you again soon on the next iteration of On the Clock with SG and On. God bless everyone. Thanks for joining today. Have a phenomenal afternoon. Stay safe and be well. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Patriots. And there's SG's show. You can find that at Q News Patriot at Rumble. We'll also check it out from time to time as much as we can. And On the Clock with SG and On. Pretty cool stuff, huh? All right, guys. I think that's where we're going to wrap it up tonight. I am happy to call it an early night, actually. Sleep sounds good, but it's so hot, man. It's hot. Even my air conditioning on, it's hot today. So, I don't know, guys. I don't think I'm going to bother trying to play the intro again. I don't know what got the video taken down earlier, but it seemed to have something to do with the intro. The appeal went through. I won the appeal, but I don't think I'm going to test my limits. So everything's been pretty good on YouTube lately. I haven't had problems with anything. I think things have just changed, honestly, finally. So it's all good news. We've come a long way this past, what's it been now? A year and a couple months, just with what's happened in this year. I know a lot of other people have had a long ride. It's been a long ride in general, this past decade of this stuff, but we're really seeing a lot of amazing stuff happen. So keep hanging in there, guys. And I am going to see you all at the same time tomorrow, like always. So God bless you all. Thank you for being here very, very much. I love you guys. Mucho, mucho. I'll see you all tomorrow. Good night.